I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes with you today talking about user story mapping. Now, this is a really useful tool for helping to break down a larger application or software program that you might be thinking about building or one that you're already building at the moment. Now, this is really useful to help get multiple people in the room. So people ideally with a product background from design, UX, right through to development and QA. If you can get a mix of people in the room that are thinking about building something together, and it helps to start thinking about what big features that you're going to be building in the application. So the first thing to do in user story mapping is to list out the big activities. These are the big features that make up your application. And it's useful, especially at the start of a project, to prioritize these. So in our example here, for a simple chat application, we've got two activities that we've started to think about. The first is looking for a user to sign up to the My Chat app. And another feature would be to create a new group within the application. Now, these big features then start to break down, and we want to think about what steps a user might need to go through to complete that activity. So, for example, when they're signing up, they're going to need to download the app. They're going to then need to read the welcome screens that are presented to them. They're going to want to sign in with either Google or Facebook, which is what we're offering here, and then finally complete some profile information. Now, the one thing to do here as well is to think about everything with regards to the user. Everything should be from the user's point of view. So even though we need to show them some legal speak in the welcome screens, it's useful to not think about the requirements from our end, but from the user's end. And that starts to get into the detail of it in the details. So for every single step, we then want to break them down into the finer activities that the user might need to go through. So in the example of downloading the app, the first thing they're going to do is go to the App Store and actively search for our app. And then finally, they're going to review the listing and press the download button. You can be as granular or as vague as you want here. In the early stages, it may be fairly vague, but if you've got a good idea of what they might need to do, you'll get more granular and more specific as you go. The reason for lots of people in the room here when you're going through this process is that it's useful to get a variety of voices and input at this stage, get everything down. And of course, if you can meet in person, this works really well with sticky notes as well. Once we've got this, what you'll start to do is form a really good idea of all of the different features and functionality that you need to build to make up those larger programs of activities within the application itself. Now, the next step to do once you've got all of the detail out here is then to start drilling into each one specifically. So we quite often translate the steps at this level into what we call epics within the Agile framework. So epics are large bundles of work that we're going to complete. They still follow a user story format. So we write everything from a user's point of view again. So for example, as a user, I want to be able to join my friends who are already using the app so that I can chat with them. And this starts to fill out the detail of really what the intent behind downloading the app is in the first place. It also moves us away from the implementation and gives us lots of ways to solve the same problem from the user. We then start to break down the details and translate these into user stories that we're going to be completing as a team together. So again, we translate these into the as I want to, so that format. So for example, following on from our download step, we've got as a user, I want to be able to find the app which my friends have recommended so that I can chat with them. The other thing that's nice to include here is some specific acceptance criteria. If you can at this stage, it's really helpful to get quite specific. And the more specific you can be, the better. So for example, in this other user story we've got here, which is to be presented with a welcome page for the first time, we even detail the number of words to keep that screen under to make it short and snappy for the user, rather than just a more vague, keep it short. And once we've got all of this, we start to build out a really detailed roadmap of work. The next thing to do would be to take all of this bundle of work and to start prioritizing it. You might have an obvious prioritizing method. So for example, the login probably needs to be done before we can show the group chat to them. But also if there's ones that are a bit more vague as to where they might be placed in the order of a roadmap, you could, for example, rate the effort against each of the user stories, how complex it's going to be to develop, against how important that criteria is from a user point of view. And once you've got the cross section of those, it will start to highlight which ones are easier to do that are more important, against those that might be more lengthy but less important for the user that could be tackled a month or even a year down the line. I hope that's been helpful. This is a really useful tool to do with almost any software project and a lot of non-software projects as well. It's a really good thing to do to start to get the detail out.